Unit 5, Lesson 4. Now, compared to the first 4 examples you saw in videos 1 and 2, we now have extended to x to the 4th, a quartic polynomial function. But notice again, our leading coefficient is just 1. That will change in Lesson 5. So we're going to start by listing all the factors of 20. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, oops, not 20, 2 times 10, 3 does not evenly divide into 20, 4, and 5. So I'm going to test both the positives and negatives of these values. Let's start by testing positive 1. So I have 1x to the 4th, 1x to the 3rd, negative 21x squared, negative 41x to the 1st, and negative 21x to 0. Alright, let's see if we get a 0 here. Remember, Mama method is multiply, add continuously. When do you start? After you drop down the first number, you start with that multiplying and adding. Let me grab another marker. Alright, as you go through these problems, it may help to have a little bit smaller of a marker. Alright, so I've started Mama method, so I'm going to write that down, Mama, and remember, it's just going to continue M-A-M-A as I go through this. So here we go. Multiply, and I put it up here. Everything multiplies by this number. Then I add straight down to get 2. I multiply back to this number, and I add straight down to get negative 19. I multiply to get negative 19, and then I'm going to add straight down to get negative 60. I multiply to get negative 60. When I add down, I end up with negative 80. That's not helping. Another reason I like using the board is it allows me to just erase this and erase this. It's just a little bit less work. And so that's what we see kids doing in class. I tried positive 1, and now I'm going to test negative 1. Dropping down the first number and starting with Mama. Multiply and add down. Multiply and add down. Multiply and add down. Multiply, and hey, it works. There's my 0. Okay, so this is what I have so far. I know that negative 1 works. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to make that statement. I know that one of the 4 solutions is going to be negative 1. Now this looks different than our previous one. So why does it look different? Because there's additional values. So let's write this down. We have 0 equals no x, 1x, oops, that was negative, x squared, and x cubed. Now, what options do we have right now? Sometimes we can solve this by factoring, but as I look at this, this does not look like I can solve factor by grouping. So I could say to myself, what am I able to factor out here? And could be applied. This does not look like factoring by grouping, but sometimes that's a possibility. Now, what do we do next? I can go back up to these numbers and continue to test. So I can start from the beginning and continue to test, and that's what I'm going to do now. Because this was not factorable, I'm going to go back and test 1, negative 1, 2, negative 2, 4, negative 2, until I get one more that works. There's x cubed, 0x squared, negative 21x, and negative 20. So to the 3rd, to the 2nd, to the 1st, and to the 0. And I'm going to start by testing 1 again, because as we learned yesterday, you can have more than one solution. As a quick reminder, remember when there's one solution, it cuts through. When you duplicate the solution, so you have it twice, it bounces off. And when you have a triple solution, it's going to snake through. So we know that you can have that solution more than one time. Let's start by testing positive 1. I drop down, and now I'm ready to start multiplying. Multiplies to get 1, adds down to 1. Multiply to 1, add down to negative 20. Multiply, and this does not work because I'd end up with negative 40. So I know that 1 is not another solution. I'm going to go ahead and test negative 1. Now, where am I coming up with these? This is this original list of positives and negatives. Let's now try negative 1. Drop down, and I'm doing the Mama method. Multiply, add down. Multiply, add down. Multiply, and we can see it works. So negative 1 works because I got 0. So I come up here and I write it again. We have a duplicate answer. And now, once I have just 3 terms left, we can either solve by factoring or the quadratic formula. So no x, 1x, and 2x. I always attempt to do factoring if possible first. What multiplies to give us negative 20 and combines to give us negative 1. That's going to be negative 5 and positive 4. All right. So what makes this equal to 0? 5. What makes this equal to 0? Negative 4. So I have a total of 4 solutions. Negative 1, it's a duplicate solution, 5, and negative 4. This will be the second and last example of this video, but now we're going to go out to x to the 5th, and we can see that in the homework problem that you were assigned from number 8. And so, just like I spoke before, in lesson 4, you can see that the leading coefficient is always 1. It will change the process in lesson 5 when it's not a 1. Okay, let's go with what are the factors of 40. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 3 does not divide in evenly, 4 and 10, and 5 and 8. So I need to test all the positives and the negatives, and remember we can't have duplets or triplets and so on. So I'm going to get started here with the first test. So x to the 5th, to the 4th, x to the 3rd, to the 2nd, to the 1st, and to the 0. So this is x0, x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. What if one of them was missing, so we didn't see a negative 19x to the 3rd? Then we put a 0 in that place. Everything has to be accounted for. I'm going to start by testing a 1. Again, I like using the boards because when it doesn't work, I can just easily erase. So I'm going to test a 1 right now. We bring down the first number. I'm going to multiply for mama and add straight down. I'm going to multiply and add straight down. I'm going to multiply and add straight down. Okay, so this is going to be 23, just making sure that that looks good. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply and add straight down. 11 here at 41, and then I'm going to multiply and I end up with a 1. I don't end up with a 0, which means that 1 does not work. Let me erase. Before I erased, I found my mistake. This should have been a 22. This should have been a 22, so now I multiply to get 22. Adding down to get 40, multiply to get 40, and now it works. Okay, so 1 is one of the 5 solutions. X equals 1 is one of the 5 solutions. Now we have a really long list here, right? Really long list. I want this list to continue to go down to where I have ideally just three terms to the left of 0. Now if there's 4 terms, I just need to make sure is it possible for me to factor by grouping. So I'm going to take this group and I'm going to write it down. And you're thinking, what am I testing? Well, I could test 1 again. I could test negative 1. I could test, I could test 2, negative 2, 4. I'm going to test negative 1 and see if negative 1 works. Okay, but it could be 1 again because we know there could be duplicates. Okay, let's drop down here. Multiply. After we multiply, we're going to add down, multiply. Let me press pause before the bell rings. Alright, so we are in between classes. Let's see if I can do this. Drop down and multiply, add down, multiply. Adding down here would be negative 18. I'm multiplying to get 18, adding to get 40, multiplying to get negative 40, and it works again. So I know x equals negative 1 is also a solution. At this time, I have 2 of the 5 solutions. But when I look down here, this does not look like it's going to be good for me to figure out how to factor by grouping. Like, I don't see a pattern here, and so I'm going to continue to test these. Let me move up another board. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and I'm going to write down exactly what we see here. Maybe there's a little bit of room off to the side. Okay, so I have 1, negative 3, negative 18, and 40. So I'm taking those remainders, not including the 0. Notice I didn't include the 0 when I wrote those down up above. And now I've tested 1 and negative 1, and again, it could be again. We could have 1 and negative 1 again because it could be duplicates. I'm going to try 2 and negative 2 to see if we can get any type of answer from those. So let's start with 2. Okay, drop down is 1. Multiply, because I'm mama method. Multiply and add down. multiply and add down, multiply and add down, and it worked. Now, why I really like this is not only that I happen to be lucky and find another answer, but now I'm left with only 3 terms. And when you're left with 3 terms, life is pretty easy. So remember, it's 0 equals no x, 1x, 2x. And I think I can quickly factor and solve this. And if you couldn't factor and solve, you'd use the quadratic formula. So this breaks into x minus 5 and x plus 4. So we have these answers, but in addition, we now have x equals 5, and we have x equals negative 4. All right, at this time, I'd like you to go back and work on 5, 6, 7, 8, and number 14. Again, if we got to this point and we weren't able to factor and solve, we would use the quadratic formula.